Kant's famous formula for discovering our ethical duty is known as a categorical imperative. It means it is an universal act of law. Then it has a number one of different versions, but Kant believed they all amounted to the same imperative. The most basic from the imperative is act only according to the maxim by which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Amo nang ginamin nga buhata lang isa ka bagay kung okay lang sa imo nga tanan tawo himuon man ini permi sa imo. In acting according to a law that we have discovered to a rational according to our own universal reason, we are acting autonomously in a self-regulating fashion, and those are bound by duty. A duty we have given ourselves as rational creatures. For Kant, choosing to obey the universal moral law is a very nature of acting ethically.
The duty framework entails that us humans, as rational beings, have a duty and obligation to do the right and correct thing, based on the universal moral principles. So this is to set expectations to every man and woman to do the right thing in every given situation. So the basis of what can be considered as a universal moral law lies within Kant's formula of categorical imperative. So this basically states that if you are okay with the action being done the same with the same situation. So if the action that you have made can be considered as a moral rule that can be followed by everybody, it can also be considered as a universal law. So these are namely always telling the truth, don't cheat, don't harm others, and always follow the law. So every person has a moral obligation or duty to do what is right in all situations, so no matter what the consequences might be. Kant believed that the moral rules, like telling the truth or not harming others, should be followed consistently, regardless of the outcome. So even if you're doing the right thing leads to a difficult or negative result, the action is still the right one because it follows your duty. So the core idea of Kant's philosophy is to do the right thing simply because it is right. So an example for this is telling a friend a hard truth or a hard pill to swallow. So although this might offend your friend or maybe it would end your relationship, the consequences of this action doesn't deny the fact that you did the right thing. Because according to Kant, telling the truth is a universal moral law.
So, my topic is about limitations. Limitations. It can appear cold and impersonal, in that it may require actions which are known to produce harms, even though they are strictly in keeping with a particular moral rule. It also does not provide a way to determine which duty we should follow if we are presented with a situation in which two or more duties conflict. It can also be rigid in applying the notion of duty to everyone regardless of personal situation. So, limitations or restrictions or boundaries that prevent something from going beyond or a certain point. In simple terms, limitations are the things that stop something from being unlimited or having no end. Example, an individual may set emotional limits in relationships, such as not allowing others to criticize their self-worth. This boundary helps protect their mental health and foster respectful interactions. My next topic is about Kant's theory of right. According to Kant, the universal principle of right is that an action is right if it can coexist with everyone's freedom in accordance with universal law, or if on its maxim the freedom of choice of each can coexist with everyone's freedom in accordance with the universal law. Universal law means a maxim that can be the maxim of all. This exercise of right begin bearing in mind the obligation to respect the right of others is tantamount to good faith or goodwill. So, Kant's theory of right is based on his concept of the categorical imperative, which is a principle that commands us to act according to maxims or rules that can be consistently willed as universal laws. In other words, you should only do something if you can reasonably expect everyone else to do the same. So this means before taking an action, one should consider whether it is reasonable to expect that others will also act in the same way. Kant's universal principle of rights is grounded in his moral philosophy, particularly in the context of his ethical framework known as deontology. Central to this principle is the idea that all rational beings possess inherent worth and dignity, which must be respected by others. Kant argues that moral principles must be universal, meaning they should apply to all rational agents without exception.
An action is legally right if it at the same time accordance with the universal law that is in accordance with the categorical imperative. Para kay Kant, kapati siya nga what is legal must be at the same time moral. This is because he believed that laws should be based on the categorical imperative, which states that act only according to that maxim by which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. However, what is legal is only limited lang sa pagsunod sa kung ano ang law sa isa ka country. That is why Kant also recognized that the law only capture a limited aspect of morality. In other contexts, what is legal is not necessarily moral. Being moral may not just be following the law, but doing more than what the law requires. Like sa pag-help sang iban nga may kinahanglan. For example, ang pagpasweldo sa isa ka employee sa iya minimum wage is legal, but paying more than his minimum wage because of concern and care of his needs is more than what is legal, and that is being moral. So, Kant says, nothing can possibly be conceived in the world or even out of it which can be called good without qualification, except a goodwill. For Kant, goodwill isn't just a wishing well or having a good intentions. It's about acting from a sense of duty, out of respect for the moral law itself. This means doing the right thing because it is the right thing to do. Himuon mo ni kay wala ka may gina-expect nga reward or gusto mo likaya ng mga consequences o punishment. Furthermore, goodwill is the criteria or framework of what is right or wrong.
Good day everyone, I am El Generaliano and I will discuss our last two topics, which is categorical imperative and ought implies. So first, let's discuss about categorical imperative. What is categorical imperative? It is a fundamental principle of ethics formulated by Kant. It is a moral law that is universal and absolute, meaning it implies to all rational beings regardless of their personal desires or circumstances. Kant also believed this principle should guide all actions. Then Kant has two versions of categorical imperative. The first version stated that I never to act other than so that I could will that my maxim should become a universal law. So this means if one cannot wish or want that a certain rule over maxim becomes the maxim of all, that is not right to follow it. For instance, one cannot will that thou shall not steal or di ka magnawat becomes a rule to be followed by all na asa subong ginagamit naman. Then because others may ultimately steal di gid kung ganang iban nga mga awat gid syempre sa iban nga mga gamit. One cannot wish that killing becomes the maxim of all because he would not, of course, wish that someone will come to kill him. Siyempre, di man pwede nga ma-wish ka nga patsin ka sa iban, di ba? So, muna siya. muna siya ang first version ni Kant. And the second version is stated, always treat humanity, whether in your own person or that the another, never simply as a means but always at the same time as an end. So treating another merely as a means to an end means equating him to a mere instrument, a tool, an object which is cast aside after use, or can be sold or exchanged when no longer needed. So, kung hindi mo na siya magamit, it's either exchange o i-exchange mo na siya kung hindi mo na siya magamit. And has a value only for as long as useful. So, may value lang siya pag magamit mo ba siya. So, kung hindi mo na siya magamit, pwede mo na siya ilabay, exchange para gamit mo sa iban, such as makes once a user is contemporary philosophy. Like Marcel or Buber's term, it is treating that other as an IT, a thing that's why they call the act thingization in the Parable of Hope for the Flowers by Trina Paulus strikes. Climbing the caterpillar pillars to reach the top, where all could be seen as reward of climbing. Or another caterpillar pillars was no other way of stepping on other caterpillars as it means of moving up higher. Siya ang means. Now my last topic is about ought implies. So what is ought implies? Ought implies is a philosophical principle by Kant that is states if something is morally required of you, then you must be able to do it. It essentially argues that we cannot be held morally responsible for actions we are incapable of performing. So for example here, we have the if I ought to do something, then I can do it. So and then explains that by way of logical analysis, the statement means one's ability to do something is a necessary condition for his being obliged to do it. In Fletcher's terms, you are obliged to do only that you can where you are. So kung ano yung mga gihambal, syempre kaya mo man sa obrahon. So, umuna siya ako. Thank you.